At a time when the whole world is focused on climate change and renewable energy, Manitoba has an abundance of it through its swiftly flowing rivers in the north. And Manitoba Hydro, a public utility responsible for developing that resource, is on the verge of making very important decisions. Do we build $20 billion worth of dams in northern Manitoba and another transmission line in order to satisfy not only growing domestic demand, but the need of our neighbor, particularly to the south? And what is the potential of moving Manitoba Hydro east and west in a cross-Canada grid? Well, this is a conversation that's been going on a long time, and we certainly didn't miss the opportunity to talk about it at this conference. And we had experts from across Manitoba and across Canada looking at our hydro potential and the best way to use it.
And I think within the politics of Bipole 3, the fact that we've done these power agreements with Wisconsin and Minnesota long term, that there is a sense in the room that this is still a politically charged utility, but it's somewhat underused. Because when we look to the west, there's that jealousy of oil, and we look to the south and we see all sorts of opportunity to export our hydroelectricity. And a certain frustration here that because of debt levels, because of decisions being made here, past, present, and future, that it's not just realizing that potential. So what I wanted to report to you was a real vision for Manitoba Hydro 15 years from now. What I can report to you is that the challenges are on the debt side. The challenges are on this vehicle to produce hydroelectricity for a domestic consumer while exporting surplus power, but also as a vehicle for development in the north.
The Business Council of Manitoba played a role 3 years ago now in starting a conversation with think tanks in this country to create something called the Winnipeg Consensus. They looked, at that time, a small group of people looked at dysfunction that was going on in the country between the environment and the energy issues and said, government won't lead this, business can't lead it. Is there a constructive role for think tanks? So for the first time in the country, think tanks were convened here in Manitoba, and it was within a week of Premier Selinger's election. He came, and within about an hour, the think tank said, yes, there's a constructive role for us to play, and we called that the Winnipeg Consensus. And over the course of the last few years, think tanks, along with a lot of other people, a lot of smart people who are doing great work in this country, have tried to push governments to say, we need a national energy conversation. We need a Canadian energy strategy. And that has moved forward. The other point that we made really is that 15 years is the minimum to have a serious conversation about the future of energy and the environment. The capital decisions that Manitoba Hydro is wrestling with, that every jurisdiction is wrestling with in the country, because this is true in every jurisdiction in the country, those are long-run capital investment decisions, and they do get bogged down in the short-term politics, and sometimes we forfeit constructive conversations because we're caught in very short-game politics.
Quebec and Manitoba are the two provinces that have the closest profile in terms of energy, hydro, and we both suffer from the same thing, to be quite frank. I saw the very low rates that you pay in the city of Winnipeg as we pay in Montreal. We live in societies where people, because of the force of habit, have come to the conclusion that this is a rent, and it inhibits our ability to increase the price of hydro to a market level, which is not the case for oil and gas, and it inhibits our revenues as a government.
The Public Utilities Board has been mandated by the government to look at alternatives to the hydro plan, and it will be asking Manitobans for their opinion over the next number of months. The Business Council will be monitoring the work of the Public Utilities Board, will be carrying a conversation with the government as it faces probably the most important economic development decision in the last decade. What we decide to do with that resource and where we send it and how we price it is absolutely integral to Manitoba's future economy.